So I'd like to mention that this morning, as the class is going to begin, is going to be based on Bhagavad Gita, chapter 5, text 18. And so I'm just letting you know that now if you want to get a Bhagavad Gita. Gita chapter 5, text 18 is the beginning point and the verse that will chant the Sanskrit. So before opening mantra and moving into the verse, I do want to say good morning to all the devotees. Fortunate to be at the ashram of Malini Devi Dasi, and online is Dira Govinda Prabhu and Ladini Devi Dasi, Ladini Shakti, Bhaktin Kim, and Nandini Devi Dasi. Hare Krishna, good morning. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
So again, in the Bhagavad Gita, in chapter 5, Karma Yoga, Action in Krishna Consciousness, text 18. I'm just going to go direct to the line by line. And Vijja Vinaya Sampane.
Vijja Vinaya Sampane.
Brahmane Gavihastini.
Brahmane Gavihastini.
Sunichaiva Swapakecha.
Sunichaiva Swapakecha.
Pandita Samadarshina.
Pandita Samadarshinaha.
If anyone else would like to chat, please.
Vijja Vinaya Sampane.
Vijja Vinaya Sampane.
Brahmana Gavihastini.
Brahmane Gavihastini.
Sunichaiva Swapakecha.
Sunichaiva Swapakecha.
Pandita Samadarshinaha.
Pandita Samadarshinaha.
Vijja Vinaya Sampane.
Vinaya Sampane.
Brahmane Gavihastini.
Brahmane Gavihastini.
Shunichaiva Swapakecha.
Sunichaiva Swapakecha.
Pandita Samadarshina.
Pandita Samadarshina.
Vidya Vinaya Sampane.
Vijja Vinaya Sampane.
Brahmane Gavihastini.
Brahmane Gavihastini.
Shunichaiva Swapakecha.
Vichaiva Svapakecha
Pandita Samadarshina
Pandita Samadarshina
Vidya Vinaya Sampane
Vidyavinaya Sampane
Brahmane Gavihashtini
Brahmane Gavihastini
Sunichaiva Svapakecha
Vichaiva Svapakecha
Pandita Samadarshina
Pandita Samadarshina. It seems that there's nobody else who will be chanting. I do also want to quickly welcome Parampara Prabhu and Garuda and/or Mother Damayanti to the Sangha this morning. Now for the word-for-word translation. Vidya, education.
Vidya, education.
Vinaya, gentleness.
Vinaya, gentleness.
Sampane, fully equipped.
Sampane, fully equipped.
Brahmane, in the Brahmana.
Brahmane, in the Brahmana.
Gavi, in the cow.
Gavi, in the cow.
Hastini, in the elephant.
Mastini, in the elephant.
Suni, in the dog.
Shuni, in the dog.
Cha, and. Eva, certainly.
Eva, certainly.
Swapake,
Swapake,
in the dog eater, the outcast.
in the dog eater, the outcast.
Cha, respectively.
Cha, respectively.
Pandita, those who are so wise.
Pandita, those who are so wise.
Samadarshina,
Samadarshina,
do see with equal vision.
do see with equal vision.
The translation in Bhagavad Gita as it is. The humble sage, by virtue of true knowledge, sees with equal vision a learned and gentle Brahmana, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog eater, outcasts. Purport. A Krishna conscious person does not make any distinction between species or castes. The Brahmana and the outcast may be different from the social point of view, or a dog or a cow or an elephant may be different from the point of view of species, but these differences of body are meaningless from the viewpoint of a learned transcendentalist. This is due to their relationship to the Supreme. For the Supreme Lord, by his plenary portion as Paramatma, is present in everyone's heart. Such an understanding of the Supreme is real knowledge. As far as the bodies are concerned, in different castes or different species of life, the Lord is equally kind to everyone because he treats everyone, every living being, as a friend, yet maintains himself as Paramatma regardless of the circumstances of the living entities. The Lord as Paramatma is present both in the outcast and in the Brahmana, although the body of a Brahmana and that of an outcast are not the same. The bodies are material, productions of different modes of material nature, but the soul and the super soul within the body are of the same spiritual quality. The similarity in the quality of the soul and the super soul, however, does not make them equal in quantity, for the individual soul is present only in that particular body, whereas the Paramatma is present in each and every body. A Krishna conscious person has full knowledge of this, and therefore he is truly learned and has equal vision. The similar characteristics of the soul and super soul are that they are both conscious, eternal, and blissful. But the difference is that the individual soul is conscious within the limited jurisdiction of the body, whereas the supersoul is conscious of all bodies. The supersoul is present in all bodies without distinction. The reason I chose for this verse this morning, just because of where a lot of my contemplations are on my spiritual journey in life, what I face in my life that's very close to me, and when I look around the world and what happens in the world and society, in looking at the nature of the difficulties, I find relief in contemplating real knowledge and to try to understand what is the experience of the vision of the Lord and his transcendental devotees. I would like to move forward. So I hope you will hold this verse in mind, and I would like to continue to add some other verses from Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam, even a mention from the Bible. And I'd like to just sort of put those also on the table, and I hope you will hold them in mind as the discussion continues, because I think that they're all related to my intended purpose and what I'm wanting to communicate about, which are deep things about our own well-being, our relationship with the Lord, and our relationships with other people, and our relationship with all that exists, in trying to look more carefully at this idea of fully embracing the oneness of Sri Krishna, and at the same time being able to make distinctions and having discretions, which would also qualify us as being sane. The next verse I'd like to introduce is the one that follows, which is text 19 in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 5. Srila Prabhupada translates. I'll say just myself the Sanskrit real quick on this one. Yataiva tarjita sargo yesham samye stitam mana. Nirdostam hi samam brahma tasmad brahmaniste stita. Those whose minds are established in sameness and equanimity have already conquered the conditions of birth and death. They are flawless like Brahman, and they are already situated in Brahman. So in this discussion of equal vision, of equanimity, this is a really powerful statement that the Lord is making and speaking to Arjuna. For Sri Krishna himself is speaking here. And this huge obstacle, what is a person? Who is a person who is able to conquer the conditions of birth and death? So Krishna is bringing that in. It's really, for me, a very strong emphasis of the importance. Like, if you just didn't do this, see other people with an equal mind, see all living entities, whatever, and I'm going to liberally take this, and I'll discuss more in a minute, but liberally, whatever you are seeing, to continue to hold vision of Sri Krishna, not forgetting Sri Krishna, not to remain on the transcendental platform of seeing Sri Krishna. That just, this is so powerful, having this state of mind, vision, that such a person has conquered birth and death. So this is a very big thing. It's really not like, well, if you can do this, there's a little step now that you just made on the path. And, so no, if you are doing that, if you are such a person who is moving throughout the world with so many people and living entities, and we'll expand more into the details of what that means. This is truly a transcendental state beyond birth and death. So before moving further on these two beginning verses in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna has chosen 5 different types of entities, but he's not saying that exclusively. That's, I think, pretty easy for us that we understand. Krishna's not saying, okay, these 5 things you see equally, but I'm not mentioning other things, so we shall imply that when it comes to everything other than these 5 things, we should have massive distinctions and judgments. Because this is really where it's going. When you're not seeing equally, there's some other judgment that's taking place. When we're making on the attempting spirituality, but we're making judgments, these distinctions, this is not going to work for overcoming birth and death. So Krishna is giving these examples. It's interesting. He doesn't limit it to humans. So he's showing it's more things, but he could really have gone on for forever, probably mentioning but he gave some things because they do contrast in interesting ways. You have the Brahmana, who's a very religious person, and this is certainly from a sort of Vedic cultural perspective. And then you have the cow, which is loved and protected by the Brahmins and has a relation of reciprocity with the Brahmins. And then you move into things like dogs and dog eaters. And just as a side note, there is a cultural thing there, because sometimes it's conveyed that actually the idea of eating a cow would just be so insane that didn't even come into the example. But yet, aside from maybe, Suchi questions, people also know that dogs even actually can be really loving beings in this country. And so like the idea of eating a dog is pretty bizarre. And that would even be more so eating a cow. So it's just coming to me to ponder that maybe some insight into Krishna choosing these as examples is because actually eating meat is actually blockage to spiritual advancement. And as we know, spiritual advancement is that ability to see Krishna in all things. So there's sort of one reason why we have a vegetarian diet, aside from Krishna specifying it, is because it's helpful. It's helpful to have this equal vision. That's a part of why we have a vegetarian diet, is I'm taking from this. So these distinctions are not just physical. There's something else that goes along with that. And again, of course, on the physical level, it could seem we know that this is about something deeper than, it's not about seeing the body as the same. Like we don't, in our world, like, oh, I'm going to milk a brahmana or go listen to verses recited by a cow. Like, well, this wouldn't be nutty. So hopefully we're beyond that pretty quick. But more deeply, Krishna's not on the bodily platform. He's going deeper. I think we're supposed to look more.
Ja, ik had het gevoel dat we niet hebben geprobeerd te zuigen, er rent iemand stol voorbij.
That's good. So these distinctions aren't just about the body. These distinctions are going to go deeper into areas of even the mind or intelligence. Anything about another living entity that might cause us to make some kind of non-spiritual distinction. And that can take the place of many things. It could take the place of distinction between, or I like men and I don't like women, or I like women and I don't like men, or where does it go in this world? I like people from this country, but I don't like people from that country, or this religion, or that religion, or this race and that race. But it goes deeper than that, because what is the consciousness? Because then we also find when people go into these places of judgment and separation, this person is okay because their maybe political view aligns with mine, even though they're from this other country. And this person from this country, I'd like to think is my countryman, but I don't agree with his political view. So I'm making now a different type of distinction. It's not based on the body, it's based on the mind or the intellect or some, not a physical form, but a mental or intellectual form. But still I'm making some distinction where that's going to prevent me from seeing Krishna in relation to that person. Because at that moment, I'm not seeing, oh, this person is part and parcel of Krishna, Krishna's in his heart, and I'm seeing Krishna and embracing whatever is happening, that I'm even aware of this person. But instead, it's going to take me to this other place where I am thinking this person is something and forgetting Krishna in the process. Because I'm either remembering Krishna in this person as part and parcel of Krishna in relation to Krishna, or I'm literally forgetting Krishna to make this distinction. So there's where we're really going with the issue. And so it can get really moves into everything. Again, not just these 5 things that Krishna mentioned, but it's on the bigger level, it's really about whoever is out there. Is there someone or something, some concept even that's going to cause us from some place of limited identity or egoism based on ourself, on some bodily or mental conception we have of ourself, that's going to cause separation. So that's what I'm taking from this, and I'm going to be really interested soon to hear, how other people relate to these verses. But right now, I'll mention from that purport, Prabhupada really nicely, and because I really consider these Prabhupada's purports to be very beautiful here. Equanimity of the mind, as mentioned above, is the sign of self-realization. Those who have actually attained to such a stage should be considered to have conquered material conditions, specifically birth and death. As long as one identifies with this body, he is considered a conditioned soul. But as soon as he is elevated to the stage of equanimity through realization of self, he is liberated from conditional life. In other words, he is no longer subject to take birth in the material world, but can enter the spiritual sky after his death. The Lord is flawless because he is without attraction or hatred. This is so powerful. The Lord is flawless. Okay, and why? Because he is without attraction or hatred. This is Prabhupada really explaining, we are of the same, meant to be of the same, we are of and are meant to realize we are of the same quality of the Lord. It's clear that we're not quantitatively the same, but the Lord is fully spiritual and we are fully spiritual. And this is a quality that we, and as in the perfection of our true spirit self, we are also meant to have this flawless quality of being without attraction or hatred, materially based. Similarly, when a living entity is without attraction or hatred, I should just read Prabhupada because the thought comes to me and it's really where he was going. So, so the living entity, he also becomes flawless and eligible to enter into the spiritual sky. Such persons are to be considered already liberated, and their symptoms are described below. And I'm not a Bible student, but I'm familiar with it, and sometimes it comes up in the Sangha, and so I just thought I would throw in. There is a biblical verse, Mark 12:31, and it's what's considered the second great commandment. The first great commandment meaning to love the Lord thy God with all thy heart and all the soul and all my mind. But the second great commandment is to love your neighbor as yourself. So when I look at the sort of just how things connect, how things relate, and the just sort of the aesthetics of the philosophies, the verse, how we're able to look at these things in our mind. Like this great commandment, and many versions of it are found in Srila Prabhupada's works, is the greatest, highest thing is to love and serve Krishna. Yeah. And well, so when we know a little more about that, we know it's not like, oh yeah, want to love God, but yeah, gotta love God, so I guess I can't love myself or I can't love other people. But then we learn, oh, I'm part of God, God's part of other people, and we're not making this mistaken discriminatory distinction that disqualifies us from the transcendental eternal life. So we learn, oh, and so in this Mark 12:31, it's actually a really beautiful thing. I mean, hopefully we're taking it beyond gross selfishness, like me, and oh, I should try to also love my neighbor too. But it really in a more deeper way, like, well, I love Krishna and I'm part of Krishna, and I love other people the same way, just as much as I love myself or Krishna, I love other people. And I really tie this very much to the Bhagavad Gita verse. Like, okay, there's that verse and it's talking about, but I think, it's a little fundamental what Krishna is saying, but I think where we're meant to really go with it is about love and non-distinction and being able to as would be appropriate to have reciprocation with other living entity that would be based on some principle related to Rupa Goswami's instructions. So the distinction has to be there. But this really is what it's about. I mean, to be in the spiritual world, you don't get to be in the spiritual world and be pouting off somewheres complaining about your situation. It doesn't work like that. It's really the more we embrace, the deeper we can enter that world. So it's really, really important to understand the truth of who we are and who Krishna is and who everyone else is, and how everything that we see, not just grossly physical, but just these situations and circumstances in life that might test us and challenge us to fall from the Brahmagupta platform, or to have this duality as opposed to this equanimity. So okay, there's still time, I'm glad. So I would also like to introduce into the contemplation of this idea of who the Lord is and who we are and who other people are, and to get these things properly understood. Because there's also difference. There is the prime entity who is God. So there is a proper relationship or understanding or importance. Prime is sometimes one of the definition aspects of understanding prime is the thing that is most important. So there is a letter that was written to Srila Prabhupada in 1973, and this is a letter that's really been very important to me. I've often contemplated. It was written to Srila Prabhupada, and I'm going to mention what was written to him, and then I'm going to read the relevant parts of Srila Prabhupada's response. But for me, somehow it connects to Bhagavad Gita 5:18. So it says in 1973, Srila Prabhupada received an unusual letter from a woman in California who had encountered two of his young disciples. She complained that they had a very negative outlook toward the people they meet. Something of outlook, something about seeing, something about vision. Moved by her genuine concern, Srila Prabhupada took some time out from his busy schedule to write her this thoughtful letter. First, I'll read the short thing that she wrote him, and I think she wrote very soulfully, and Srila Prabhupada appreciated that. And Your Grace, please accept this letter with love. Kmart, San Bernardino. We have talked with two of your boys at different times. Both had a very negative outlook toward the people they meet. Maybe I wasn't there, and Srila mentions he wasn't there either, but it sounds like her experience is that these two young disciples were not seeing with equal vision, like it's all beautiful in Krishna, but they were making distinctions that, even if based on things about the material world, that it was about, for her, it was about like a lack of love. It was something discriminatory in a way that was not high or helpful. It was actually troubled her enough to, but also wonderfully, it troubled her enough to make contact with Srila Prabhupada and create this letters, which I think are so amazing. So thank you, Lynn. So both had it, she's saying both had a very negative outlook toward the people they look. Do not believe this is in any way as it should be. These boys happen to represent God. This comes from within. Their outlook must have mercy. We realize this, therefore handpick these little pieces of heaven to place in the middle of these people, or it will defeat your purpose. Love is, let it be as it is, with love or not at all. My prayers be with you, and I beg yours with me. Yours in God, blessed be, Lynn Ludwig. So Prabhupada replied in due course, said, my dear Lynn Ludwig, please accept my blessings. I beg to acknowledge receipt of your letter from California, and I have noted the contents carefully. Although due to extensive traveling and preaching and a tour in India, I've not had the opportunity to reply to you at length until now. Your complaint is that you have met two of my young disciples in California, and they appear to you to have a very negative outlook toward the people they meet. So, I'll just mention, here we are in Krishna consciousness, wanting to help other people become Krishna consciousness. So how might our ability to have a sort of Uttama Adhikari type of seeing everything in relation to Krishna, seeing everyone in relation to Krishna, not only cause us to be very dear to Krishna, because Krishna gets into all that in other places, but actually help us be successful in sharing with another person this beautiful transcendental knowledge and sharing with them a mutual experience of this. So coming back to, of course, Prabhupada saying, of course, I do not know the case and what the circumstances are, but kindly forgive my beloved disciples for any unkindness or indiscretion on their part. After all, to give up one's life completely for serving the Lord is not an easy thing, and Maya, the illusory material energy, tries especially hard to again entrap those who have left her service to become devotees. So Prabhupada goes, I won't read it, but Prabhupada just goes on to not trying to be defensive of, not identifying with his disciples in a way to kind of be defensive or get into conflict, but just appealing to her, to the magnanimity in her own heart, to just she's a kind of coming from a beautiful place, just forgive, understand they're doing their best, they're where they're at, and just in their immaturity. And it's not just about devotees, but anytime we have some issue with another person, just to step back and remember we're all part and parcel of Krishna, and we're all just growing. And can we forgive? And I'll throw in a Bible thing too. I don't do these things much, but I have somebody been hearing the Lord's Prayer lately, but saying to the Lord, to Krishna, forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. You can't really go forgive me my trespasses, but I'm not no, really it's kind of I am forgiven when I can forgive. It just goes together, the forgiveness. She was a little sentimental, and Prabhupada does get into realities, not just trying to make it all, flowers and butterflies and pretend. He says, but the actual fact is the material world is a miserable, negative place full of danger at every step. Dikalayam, Ashavatam, and a temporary abode of birth, death, disease, and old age. So Prabhupada goes there and explains all that, but then he goes to a really nice place. He from Bhagavad, this is around Bhagavad Gita 8:15, and he talks about like what is a Mahatma. Okay, so because they are Mahatma, the great souls, Krishna keeps them with him because they have qualified themselves to escape this nasty place by becoming his pure devotees. The point is to make advancement in spiritual life, one must view everything material with a pessimistic eye unless it is utilized to serve and please Krishna. So I want to comment on this word Mahatma, and that is a sort of direct translation. Mahatma, Maha, great, Atma, soul, Mahatma, a great soul. What is a great soul? Well, in other places, and I can't give you the reference, but I swear I'm clear about this. Prabhupada talks about a Mahatma as being a broad-minded person. Mahatma is a broad-minded person. So a great soul is a person who is broad-minded. We're talking in a true sense. And again, this connects to the starting verse because, wow, isn't that pretty broad? Like a Brahmana and a dog eater, like I'm seeing them, I'm able to see them without somebody to like, wow, that's beautiful. That's vision, seeing, that's the mind, sort of broad-minded. So this is nice, I think. And so very importantly, further on in that letter, Prabhupada just talks about this sort of the transactional relationship of material love, like you gratify my senses, I'll gratify yours. And people try to make these deals and relationships don't work out because that's just not really the way things truly work. Yeah. But Prabhupada says something really, really important. He says, because we do want love and we do want relationship. And so this is going to connect to that word prime. Krishna is the prime entity. Everyone wants to repose his loving tendency in some object, which is, in his opinion, worthy. But the question is one of ignorance only, because people have a poor fund of knowledge about where to find that supreme lovable object who is actually worthy, capable to accept and reciprocate their love. People simply do not know. There's no proper information. So further down, after many births and deaths, he who is actually wise surrenders unto me, this is Krishna speaking, knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that is. Such a great soul is very rare. Again, Krishna uses that word Mahatma, great soul. So further down, Prabhupada talks about it and says, by surrendering to Krishna, one will find the final object in which to invest his love. God, love of God is present in everyone. So Prabhupada just tries to clarify, we have to really develop our relationship with Krishna as our fundamental prime relationship, as the prime person. And when we can do that, and this is the knowledge Prabhupada is giving, then we can truly begin to embrace loving everybody and everything. When we are in making our relationship with Krishna. 8:50. So it's getting late. I'm just going to run through the reference and translation of a few other verses that I was appreciating and connecting to. So this is from Bhagavad Gita 12, 18, and 19. But on this topic of equanimity, the translation is one who is equal to friends and enemies, whose equipoise in honor and dishonor, heat and cold, happiness and distress, fame and infamy, and who is always free from contaminating association, always silent and satisfied with anything, who doesn't care for any residence, who is fixed in knowledge, and who is engaged in devotional service. Such a person is very dear to me. So Krishna starts that off. The first thing he says is one who is equal to friends and enemies. And that was the first thing. And continues with all these other things of great equal importance. But wow, this person is very dear to me. Wow. Wow, can you imagine being a person who is very dear to Krishna? And if I can just imagine how pleased Srila Prabhupada would be. We're taking these instructions from Srila Prabhupada, and that is also a factor in being dear to Krishna. But also the more we come closer to Krishna, we're endearing to Srila Prabhupada, gratifying to Srila Prabhupada, fulfilling to Srila Prabhupada. So this is from Srimad Bhagavatam, later in Srimad Bhagavatam, in the area of the Uddhava Gita, where Krishna is speaking to Uddhava. And actually, there's a lot of similarity between Krishna speaking to Uddhava and speaking the Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. Huge similarities in what's being said. Although Uddhava is not a kshatriya on the battlefield, so Krishna is delivering this transcendental knowledge without distinction. There was no, sorry, Uddhava, for kshatriyas only. So in Bhagavatam 11:7-12, Krishna says, one who is the kind well-wisher of all living beings, who is peaceful and firmly fixed in knowledge and realization, sees me within all things. Such a person never again falls down into the cycle of birth and death. See how closely that connects to what was been said earlier in Bhagavad Gita. And here's another area that I think is very important. It has to do with understanding, principle of guru, and because there's a oneness to guru, and there are also the particulars. Like Krishna is everywheres, and if we have the understanding, everything and everyone is representing Krishna. Like Krishna is everywhere, Guru is everywhere. And this is a big part of what the Uddhava Gita is about. But at the same time, like I'm also really clear myself, this is just a personal statement, that my Guru Maharaj is Srila Prabhupada. And even my understanding of the principle of Guru is, for me, fixed to that particular relationship of Srila Prabhupada as Krishna's representative. That's my personal statement. So in the 11th canto, Krishna is talking about relating to Uddhava, a conversation between King Yadu and an Avaduta. And is that correct? I believe so. I'm pretty sure that's how it is. Krishna is speaking to Uddhava and referencing the conversation between King Yadu and the Avaduta. And our scriptures are like that, like Sutta Goswami talking about it. Like, so it's like that. We have conversations within conversations. So pay attention, folks. The Brahmana said, "My dear king, with my intelligence, I have taken shelter of many spiritual masters. Having gained transcendental understanding from them, I now wander about the earth in a liberated condition." And I'll read a little bit from the purport. The word Bhuja Upashita in this verse indicates that the Brahmana's spiritual masters did not directly speak to him. Instead, he learned from them by his intelligence. All living entities who are inimical to Lord Krishna glorify useless material things and spend their lives trying to lord it over the material objects they falsely worship. Thus, the conditioned souls try to increase their duration of life as well as their fame and beauty by means of mundane religiosity, economic development, and gross sense gratification. King Yadu noticed that the saintly Avadhuta did not behave like that. Therefore, the king was inquisitive to find out the actual situation of the Brahmana. In reply to the king, the saintly Brahmana states, "I do not consider the 24 elements of the physical world as objects of my sense gratification, and therefore I don't consider accepting or rejecting them. Rather, I accept the material elements as my instructing spiritual masters. Thus, even though wandering throughout the material world, I am never bereft of service to the Guru. Taking shelter of steady intelligence, I travel about the earth, constantly engaged on the transcendental platform. By intelligence, I transcend the useless desires, and my ultimate goal is the loving devotional service to the Lord. Now I shall explain to you about my 24 spiritual masters." So this is really important. I won't get into all the spiritual masters, but they are in his observances with his intelligence and his process of learning. This very intelligent Brahmana, just by observing what's happening with a snake or a family of birds, or even, I believe her name is Pingala, the prostitute. Krishna is everywhere. Everything is represented. We can, if we are open, we are broad-minded. We have the ability to see Krishna constantly and to learn constantly. And so in order to do that, one has to view things like that. We're not viewing, as Prabhupada just said, based on our material sensibilities and accepting and rejecting based on our sense gratification. But if we're living life in the spirit of wanting to obtain this transcendental platform or move deeper into the transcendental platform, we are living in a state of openness to what we can learn, to what we can experience. And if something is, whatever is happening, whoever we're meeting, whatever a situation is, we're going to approach it not with a desire or a negativity, but an open willingness to embrace. Even if it's where are you in this situation, Krishna? Where am I in this situation? To be with you and to find you. So there's also in Bhagavad Gita 2:24, there's a verse that connects quite interestingly. And the relevant part is sort of the second part of the translation. But Krishna is talking about chapter 2. The individual soul, unbreakable and insoluble, cannot be burned or dried. Understand nature spirit. But Krishna also says, referring to the soul, and actually referring to the jiva, largely, he is everlasting, present everywhere, unchangeable, immovable, and eternally the same. So there's an interesting point there. One might go, wait a second, this is kind of talking about the jiva. It says present everywhere. One should not make the mistake to be going like, wow, I'm really like God because I'm present everywhere. It's actually clarified by Srila Prabhupada in various places, including the purport, that it's not necessarily that you as an individual jiva is everywhere, but just that jivas are everywhere. And so if you're generous, how I connect that is wherever you're going to try to go, anywhere, because everywhere there's going to be other living entities. There's going to be you're going to have lots of opportunity for being judgmental and making distinctions. So since the living entities are everywhere, it would just seem wise to develop this ability of having this vision to be able to see Paramatma or Krishna in the heart of every being, to see everyone as related to Krishna, to see every situation that's coming from Krishna, because that's all there is everywhere. There's really no escape. You can try to get away with it, and you're in the material world struggling about that, reality. But the transcendental life is to just understand that the living entities are everywhere, and we want to be able to experience everyone and everything on the transcendental platform. So I'm going to bring it to a close in seconds. But in Bhagavad Gita 10, 4-5, Krishna again, he says, intelligence, knowledge, freedom from doubt and delusion, forgiveness, truthfulness, control of the senses, control of the mind, happiness and distress, birth, death, fear, fearlessness, nonviolence, equanimity, satisfaction, austerity, charity, fame, and infamy. All these various qualities of living entities are created by me alone. So for me, I just see how it's all connecting. Like here, Krishna's talking about forgiveness, and Srila Prabhupada was talking about forgiveness with Lynn Ludwig, and to be able to see how that's connected to Krishna, our primary. So everything is really, really connected. And I will stop there. And if anybody would like to say anything, I'd be happy to hear.
Hare Krishna, Gajendra Prabhu, thank you very much for the class.
I
really appreciate the main. I feel like there was a main topic, which was seeing equal vision, and then I appreciate all the examples that you gave, different kind of angles to kind of take a deeper look at that. I'm kind of sitting with just kind of meditating on like, oh, how would my life be different if that was like in the forefront of my consciousness on a regular basis. I feel like there could be a big change. Like there could be a completely different experience for myself holding that perspective, holding that reality at the forefront of my consciousness. So I was kind of looking at that and like just the idea that is the transcendental like platform, that is the spiritual, that is the consciousness and the reality of being in the spiritual world is being in that way like all the time. So I don't know, I'm just really appreciating that, like kind of interested in really kind of setting that intention for myself and seeing, you know, more that this particular topic has been coming up for me, but I haven't like, you know, really kind of just maybe I could have like, I could wake up each morning and like, you know, have something written or something I read intentionally to bring me to that place of like, oh, remembrance, because I feel like I'm so like I'm in judgment and distinctions of differences, and I can easily go there, I guess is what I'm saying. So yeah, thank you for the class. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for your comment. And yeah, you've really understood kind of the intention of it. And you know, I didn't get into a lot of things, but I you know, to really talk about this in our personal lives, in the story of our individual lives and circumstances, it is about bringing this to the specifics of what is a particular drama we're having with a particular person in a particular situation in life. We're meant to deal with this really personally and close where we bring these things. It's really about stepping back from that business partner or your life mate or whoever it is, or something. If you're politically minded, what's happening with the social discord in society, those darn liberals or Republicans, like wherever you're going, where you're making a material distinction based on your mind liking or not liking someone or something, that's where we really need to bring this into. And that's where, so I would say like, well, yeah, you know, that's really nice, what you said, and you just kind of want to look at this, maybe bring it in every day. So by reflecting on the words of Prabhupada and Krishna, and then personalizing that to the situations in our own life, it can be really helpful in helping us step back from our individual dramas and situations, make a better life for ourselves, be happier ourselves, and like I say, pleases Prabhupada and Krishna and that other person or situation that's causing us care. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Okay.
I really appreciated the class. It's like one of my favorite verses and subjects, and you know, I always go back to, and that Bible verse you said, with love God with your whole heart and your neighbor as yourself. And I always go back to like, love is such a huge word. It's so lofty. It's almost inconceivable to me in a way, because I know that my feelings are so mixed with material covering and selfishness. And so I get almost overwhelmed, you know, like, how am I going to love God with my whole heart? No less my neighbor as myself. But the one thing I can seem to manage is at least to try to remember that everyone is a part and parcel of Krishna. Yeah. Like that I can keep, you know, and it helps a lot. And I don't know, I don't know, your whole class was just beautiful in remembering that. And that's all I want to say. So thank you very much.
Wow, that's really nice, and I appreciate it. Like, even just to remember just a little thing, almost mantra like, just as we go through today, to remember everyone as being part and parcel of Krishna, and to hold that space in relation to love. And I'm not saying that in a soppy way, but it really, you know, in a cheap way, but in a very real way. And, you know, that's really what we're meant to do. I mean, that's really what the spiritual world is about. We're not impersonalizing, like, oh, just God is love. But it's like, it really, devotional service, bhakti, is meant to be about expressing love. That's what's going on with Mother Yashoda and Krishna. And we have to be able to do that, to enter that transcendental abode, to be beyond the birth and death of this world, having that vision that you just talked about, seeing everyone as part and parcel of Krishna. That's qualification. So thank you. I'll try to follow your example.
I see that Ladini Shakti has her hand up.
I don't know how to work it. She's free to speak.
Hare Krishna. Yes, thank you, Gajendra Prabhu, very much for your class. I love this verse. It's a verse for me to justify to worship my dog. and you really extended my vision that it also speaks about like having equal vision for different people. I never apply it to people really. And yeah, it was helpful. It was helpful for me to extend the understanding of the verse, and then especially when you connected it with that letter from Shah Prabhupada. It has been very long. I knew that letter from a very long time ago. At this time I heard it. It really moved my heart. How like seeing with the equal vision, like really seeing the goodness in the heart of everyone, and maybe it's deep in the heart, but it's there. And even when we are like on this path of trying to bring the goodness, love for God up, it doesn't mean that we are good at it and have that like compassion. Yeah, I really appreciated it.
Yeah, compassion. Yeah. Yeah, it's there's always seems a recurring need for forgiveness in life. And it is, I believe, you know, there is a practice. I think, you know, I think Garuda brought it up and Kim brought it up, but it is about having have a conscious intention to try to be aware, because there is so much that, you know, I experience, to speak for myself, and maybe others can relate, that I've carried and lived life with so much judgment, so much mental I like or I don't like, and I'm going to judge this, that it's been so massive that I've mostly been aware of it. It was just, I was so good at being judgmental, I didn't even have to think about it. I couldn't even be aware of it. And it's a really interesting thing. And, you know, I'll just reference, I did a seminar one time. It was the advanced process of a particular seminar. Probably some of you guys are familiar with it. And I very much remember walking into the room and just looking around, thinking, why am I even here? This person, that person, you know. And as I went through this process, by the end of the week, I just like, these people are amazing. Like they're like, I was just like in love with everybody. I was thinking, how can I convince, just never leave the summit? Like I was just so enthralled with these people around me because I was raised during the process of the seminar, my consciousness raised, my heart opened, it was just really dramatic and really desirable and preferable to go from this place of unconscious and judgment, or just making unaware judgments, to actually seeing people. Because it's not just about I don't want to make non-judgments. I don't want to have anything like a void, but I actually want to have a positive vision. To see people as part and parcel of Krishna. Wow, that is a really very positive vision. So we want to be positive, not just not negative.
Hare Krishna. I appreciate that extension and your personal sharing, which I can probably relate to everything you shared. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Mother Nandini, earlier I thought I saw a hand.
Hare Krishna, Gajendra Prabhu. Thank you for your class. It was very soothing for the heart to listen to what you were sharing. And like I just opened up to this perspective of when you were saying we meet living entities everywhere, the jivas, the souls, they're everywhere. So every time I meet a living entity, it's an opportunity to grow into the greatness of my soul. And I just connected with some joy and inspiration about that. And as you were saying that, actually, I was outside. It's cold now, but so I came in, but I was outside and the rabbit came and also came to listen to what you were sharing. So that was kind of humorous and beautiful. And just this conversation now about judgments. I have a coaching client, and he's a kind of person I have layers and layers of judgment about. So this person came to me, and I'm in a prayerful mood every time. Let me suspend judgments and really meet this person where he's at and support him. And every time I do that, like I just new worlds open up for me. I learn so much. And sometimes it's even a little overwhelming. So to go through life without judgments or suspending judgments, I see it as a learning process. And there was something else you shared. Just like the wording of the spiritual world, I got this understanding. It's not about going into the spiritual world or not going into it. It's not like a border. But it's a process, and we can start to enter, or we are perhaps already starting to enter the spiritual world, and we can go deeper and deeper and deeper into it until at one point the material world is just very, very far away. And just that was a new way of understanding spiritual world and entering the spiritual world. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, there may be certain realities, like I'm have a certain reality with this body. I have a certain situation. I'm in this body. It's going to be alive for a certain amount of time. It has many limitations. It's not like I have this light being body, but still Srila Prabhupada, it's in the Bhagavad Gita purport. If someone knows, they can mention, but Srila Prabhupada does talk about, you know, when we perform devotional service, when we have the consciousness, the understanding that we're talking about, he says, we are transcendental even in this body. So the spiritual world, like you said, it's not necessarily like a geographical area in the material world with a border. I mean, we can maybe jokingly think like, oh, we're refugees from the material world showing up for asylum, but Krishna is everywhere. It's not like there's a zone that Krishna is not the supreme controller. There's a zone where Krishna is not. You know, Hiranyakashipu tried to go there, questioning like, well, he's not in this pillar, right? See, that didn't work out very well. So really, Krishna is all pervading, and Krishna is in our hearts, and Krishna is, you either are in that state of being or just know that even in our forgetfulness, whether it's a long time or just in a particular moment, we're starting to forget, but Krishna is immediately accessible. There's no place you have to go. There's nothing you have to, there's nothing material you need to do other than re-enter that state of consciousness, that state of being. It's not like, well, first I got to get rid of this material body, or I need to like hop the flight to Goloka Vrindavan, and it's a here and now thing, and the place, anywhere, anytime is good for Krishna consciousness. Krishna is fully accessible. Thank you. How about Prague, Rukmini Devi Dasi? Oh, well, no, right. Prague is the exception. Because okay, all this other stuff, people from Prague, boy, let me tell you. Yeah, tomorrow's class, if I may, I want to talk about the people from Prague because it's a big issue. We need to be aware of these Prague people. But no, even the people from Prague. It's hard to believe. That one's hard. It's a big challenge. But yeah, the people from Prague still on board with the philosophy.
Hare Krishna, Gajendra Prabhu. I appreciate it and moved by many points. I actually took notes. I don't think I'll mention them though, since we're coming to the closure of the class. But many points, like really including the letter from Lynn Ludwig and the distinction in the context of oneness. So many points. I liked how you simply yet profoundly shared the distinction. I'd like to just share something. It's really my favorite memoir, my favorite biography of Prabhupada is Mukunda Goswami's Miracle on Second Avenue. So I just thought I wanted to read an excerpt from that, and I think it's really appropriate for the theme of this class.
Please.
Okay, so this is from Mukunda Goswami's Miracle on Second Avenue. Many biographies of Prabhupada I love, but this is probably my favorite. So Mukunda writes, this is the San Francisco period, Haight-Ashbury, early 1967. I think most of you know the basic history. First, Mukunda was with him in New York, and then came to San Francisco after that one. So he writes, on weekend evenings, Haight Street had acquired a perpetual background soundtrack of guitars, bells, bongos, recorders, flutes, seaweed horns, and rock music that pounded from storefronts and handheld blasters. Many were smoking pot and hashish or were drinking Olympia beer out of brown stubbies, sharing Gallo wine or swigging Johnny Walker out of big bottles in brown paper sacks. Others with packs and sleeping bags on their backs, strummed on guitars, singing as they walked. Dozens of boys and girls and same-sex couples walked past holding hands or arm in arm. Some embraced and kissed, leaning against storefront windows. Cross-dressers lounged in doorways. I walked in silence next to the Swami. I thought the whole scene before us must appear very decadent to the Swami, and I didn't know what to say about it to him. Finally, I said, "It's a beautiful night." The Swami scrutinized the street sellers, looked at passing smokers and bongo players, people with painted faces and wild, brightly colored costumes. He appeared to smell the air, taking in the burning odor of marijuana and the sharp, putrid stench of alcohol, which was tempered by the fragrance of roses and carnation. He turned, smiling, and said, "Everything is beautiful." I was surprised because I thought the Swami would perceive this streetscape as being debauched and disgusting. But as we walked in companionable silence, I realized that the Swami perceived Krishna in this place. Many of these people were genuine seekers, eager for knowledge, ripe and ready for Krishna consciousness. There was no good or bad from the pure angle of vision. Everything and everyone in every part of creation was Krishna's energy. And because the Swami was in touch with that energy, he saw this beauty. The people were beautiful because they were all potential devotees. Everything was beautiful because everything was connected to Krishna. His remark was more an instruction than a casual comment. Everything is beautiful.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, Srila Prabhupada is such his consciousness, he is just so beautiful. And it's this really wonderful that Kunda Goswami shared that. And thank you so much for sharing that right now. It's just extraordinary. Perfect.
Hare Krishna.
Is there anything else? Well, so I'll just as a closing to Ladini Shakti, it's very important to keep the distinction in reference to your comment about your dog. And I understand loving dogs, but there is a distinction between Srila Prabhupada and Srila Prabhupada. And you want to keep this clear, but loving your dog is totally okay.
I am not getting the Shah Prabhupada and Shah Prabhupada.
Pod is the feet, and paw is the dog's foot.
Right. Okay. That's funny. Thank you.
They teach us a lot about unconditional love. This is something even people who are not reading Bhagavad Gita understand about the quality. So again, referencing like the Brahmana in the Uddhava Gita, learning. So by observing with our intelligence, we can observe and learn from a dog.
Well, really, it's a attachment disorder because we take them too early from their mom, but it's okay. You can call it love.
So, that was honest, and truthfulness is the quality of a Brahmana. Hare Krishna, everybody. Thank you. Thank you for your association.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Haribol.
Oh, there's a Prabhupada.
Jai.
Bhagavad Gita.
Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna.
You can just add.
I don't know how to do.
Yeah, Ilya.
There it is.
Yeah.